My daughter-in-law once walked into my own kitchen with a lawyer and a notary trying to push a deed across the table, as if I'd quietly sign away my life's work. I felt the sting, but instead of breaking down, I drew on 66 years of living and every lesson sacrifice had taught me. Calmly, I laid out my red folder-proof letters and a recording that froze the notary's hand mid-air. What none of them knew was that this was only the opening move in a battle that would reach the courthouse and end with truth on the record. Before I continue the story, please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment letting me know where you're watching. From Pikes Peak sat like a dark shoulder against the evening, and the country club glowed warm as a lantern. I pressed my palm to my dress to quiet the flutter and reminded myself tonight was for Gannon. Smile, breathe, keep the peace. I drifted to the seating chart names in careful script and tiny gold dots. Across the ballroom, Jody's gown caught the light. My son leaned toward the best man while someone fixed his boutonniere. I let myself love the picture for one heartbeat, then walked to find my place. My finger ran down the rows until it found my name, except it didn't. The card read Lorena House Support, as if I were a category, not a mother. At the table, a matching tent repeated the insult set beside the bussing door and a swinging gray trash can lined with a fresh liner. Plates thudded. The dishwasher sighed. A young staffer brushed past with a tub of cutlery. "Ma'am Crew eats later in the service nook," he said, gentle as a warning. Heat rose and faded. I turned the little card face down, took a photo, and slid it under my plate. I sat and watched the room whirl on. The bride's mother is so gracious to host a woman in mauve, whispered as she passed, looking straight at Jody. It must be wonderful to have such help, another guest added, to no one in particular. People smiled at me the way you smile at the pianist who's doing a decent job. One man asked if I could find him a high chair. "I'm a guest," I said, pleasant and even. He flushed and hurried away. The music plucked at the edges of conversation. I noted table numbers, the placement of the toasts, the line for the bar, the way kindness skipped my chair. Let them design a map where I am a hallway. I know every room in this building, and none of them can lock the door on my memory. Evidence is calmer language than anger. I would use it. I would wait, patiently. A chime squealed from the speakers. The DJ tapped the microphone and drew a breath from the crowd. "Later tonight, our radiant bride has something special to say," he announced. Applause swelled and faded. I felt the future bruise of it, already sugar with a razor under the frosting. I folded my napkin, set it square beneath my water glass, and let the moment pass through me without lodging. When the dessert hour opened, I walked to the counter by the pastry station. "I'll take the sheet cake add-ons for table 6, I told the cashier, sliding my member card across the marble, the same card I'd used here since Gannon was 13 and hungry after summer tennis. The terminal blinked thought and wrote its verdict in cold letters, "Declined." The cashier lowered her voice. "I'm sorry, Miss Castillo. It says authorization changed." She printed a slip. At the bottom, a timestamp and a new line, "Account holder updated." I asked for the slip and the manager's initials. She obliged, eyes, kind mouth, careful. The balcony doors opened to mountain air. I stepped out and let the night touch my face. The sky was the color of slate, the kind you write a list on. I breathed until the tight ring in my chest loosened. $15,000 for their down payment. A bridge, I'd told myself, not a gift. I raised my phone and took a wide photo that caught the ballroom's edge and the lights reflected in glass. In my Notes app, I typed the time, the decline code, and the manager's name. Save. Close. When I turned back, the ballroom hummed as if nothing had shifted but me. Jody found me on my way inside, glossy and bright, a woman who understands lighting. "Everything under control?" she asked, voice syrup smooth. "It's our special night, Lorena." Her hand rested on my arm, then slid away. Her eyes dipped to my clutch as the corner of paper peeked out. "Don't worry about logistics. We've got all the accounts squared away." I smiled, warm enough to pass inspection. "I'm sure you do," I said. She smiled back, the kind that never reaches the eyes, and drifted off like a commercial on mute. Gannon followed a minute later, tie slightly loosened. He kissed my cheek quick. "You doing okay, Mom? It's been a blur." He looked past me toward a cluster of groomsmen waving him over. "We'll talk tomorrow after the rush," he promised, the way busy men promise themselves a morning run. "Tomorrow," I said, and I meant it 2 ways. He squeezed my hand and was gone before the warmth had time to settle. In the east hallway, quiet as a library, a framed watercolor of Pike's Peak hung above a side table. I leaned my phone there and photographed the tent card and the declined slip crisp and readable. Then I opened a new album and titled it Wedding Night Evidence. The habit felt unfamiliar and natural at once, like my hands remembered a language I'd learned long ago. I set a reminder to call my attorney on Monday if this slid any further, and another to check my credit alerts at dawn. Back at my assigned table, the busing door swished and steam curled from racks. A bridesmaid brushed by, trailing perfume and laughter. Jody's gaze flicked from my clutch to the nearest attendant, just a flicker, and a tiny nod passed between them. I turned the card face down and smiled because tonight I learned where to start. Tomorrow, she would lift a microphone. I would keep my hands still and my records closer. I checked the time, 9:42 p.m., 5:10:25, and slid the slips deeper into my clutch. The band moved into a waltz. In the glass, my reflection looked older but steady. Let them dance. I had the mountain and I had facts. Steady. The DJ tapped the mic and the lights drew a soft halo across the ballroom. I slipped my phone into my clutch and returned to my honored seat by the busing door napkins, breathing in and out with every pass of staff. I kept my smile easy. Tomorrow she'd lift a microphone. I'd keep my hands still and my records closer. I sat straighter. Before we danced, the MC sang, "Our bride has a special thank you." Glass chimes scattered around the room. I pressed the declined slip deeper into my clutch until the paper edge pressed my palm. My water glass trembled, but only because the table was a little loose. The room smelled like roses and buttercream. Behind me, the trash door whispered open and shut with its own tired rhythm. Jody floated to center stage satin, catching the spotlight. "Family is everything," she began, voice-honeyed eyes gliding over the crowd, skimming me as if I were a framed photo hung a little too high. "And some people give more than we could ever ask. Gannon and I are so blessed by our constant helper, always here, always generous, even now." Polite laughter fluttered. I angled my phone without lifting it thumb, starting a quiet voice memo. Names, phrases, time. I could feel the DJ's bass through the floor. She turned the ribbon into a knife without ever changing her tone. "Some mothers," she said, "have a hard time letting go, but not tonight. Tonight, she's here, happy to support our new household, our future." A flash popped. Champagne hissed. I left my glass on the table so no clink would hide her wording. My jaw loosened. I breathed through my nose and filed the phrasing constant helper, letting go, our household. I marked the moment the room laughed and the moment it didn't. Gannon smiled toward the floor, then toward her. I watched the muscles in his cheek try to decide who he was. He didn't stand. He didn't signal the MC. He folded into applause that sounded like paper. His bow tie was a shade off from the groomsmen, close enough for pictures, not close enough for truth. After the toast, strangers used her script as if it were sheet music. "You're lucky to live with them," one aunt said. "So thoughtful you helped with their down payment," a man added, eyes already drifting past me toward the dessert table. I thanked each of them as if they'd brought casseroles to a wake. A younger cousin asked if I liked the activities at my building, as if I had joined a summer camp rather than funded a mortgage. I counted to 3 between each answer and let the silence do some of my work. Near a wall sconce, I stopped and tagged the recording fingers steady. "Wedding toast," I typed. "Helper, let go, our household." I added the table number, the time on the DJ's screen, the names of the nearest clappers. I do not argue with microphones. I answer with documents. I set the note to lock. If anyone borrowed my phone, they'd find nothing but recipes and weather. A bridesmaid's phone lit up bright enough to wash her pearls. She glanced at me, then turned her screen toward a cousin. My own phone buzzed in my clutch. Silas, my neighbor, forwarding a screenshot with no commentary. Family decisions amid 12. The list of participants stacked like a short ladder. My name was not on it. The subject line read, "Tomorrow AM paperwork plan." I saved the image, then saved it again with metadata visible. I flagged it patterned social isolation. I could almost hear my late husband saying, "Take the note, not the bait." Out on the balcony, the night air smelled like sage and stone. I scrolled the album I'd created earlier. The seat card turned face down. The declined slip, now the audio clip and the family thread that forgot the woman who raised the groom. Lights of Colorado Springs spread below like a patient EKG. I set a reminder for morning review. Title, Finances Language. Beyond the parking lot, Pikes Peak wore a dark shoulder against the stars. I remembered driving a stick shift up that mountain with a boy who promised he'd buy me dinner at the summit and did. When I stepped back inside, Jody intercepted me with a theater smile. "Thank you for being flexible tonight," she murmured, as if we were co-chairs wrapping a fundraiser. "We'll handle the paperwork in the morning, so easy." I matched her tone. "Tomorrow works." Her eyes dipped to my clutch where the corner of the declined slip peered out like a bookmark. Her hand brushed my forearm the way hostesses do when they want you to leave happy and empty-handed. I stayed near the doors and let the music soften the edges of the room. I could have asked for the mic. I could have given a speech about paying club dues for 20 years and wiring $15,000 without a receipt because I trusted my son. Instead, I texted myself one line: "Never argue with a microphone answer with a document." Then I slid the phone away and watched my boy dance with his wife, the two of them framed by sparklers on the screen behind the band. Cake arrived in neat squares crowned with strawberries. The server apologized that the coffee urn on my side had run dry. She'd circle back. "No rush," I said, and meant it. When I lifted my fork, my phone blinked again. "Title Office Update Available," the subject line read. The timing stamped itself into the evening like a seal. I forwarded the message to my personal email and to a folder I keep for storms. Let them toast. I keep receipts, and tomorrow I'll start spending them. At 9:12 on Sunday morning, the bell rang as my kettle hissed. I set 2 mugs on the counter and opened the door to a cool breath off Pikes Peak. Jody stepped in first, followed by a narrow man in a navy suit and a younger fellow with a stamp kit. "We thought we'd make this easy," Jody said, brushing my cheek with an air kiss that never landed. We formed a half moon around my son's kitchen island. Gannon hovered by the dimmer switch as if lighting could save us. The suited man set a leather folio down and introduced himself as Casey. The other said he was Joran the notary. Jody smoothed the counter as if preparing a game board. Casey opened with a chuckle that didn't reach his eyes. "First item is a care plan," he said, lifting a single page. "A modest deposit to secure you a spot at Meadow Ridge. 24-hour support if you ever need it. Your safety is everyone's priority. Peace of mind." Jody translated, smiling at Gannon. "For all of us." My kettle clicked off. I poured coffee. "I still drive. I still work part-time at the library," I said, keeping my voice even. "What else is in your folio, Casey?" He moved to the second stack. "Standard refinance housekeeping," he said. "A quitclaim deed purely administrative. Title in their names alone keeps the bank's process clean. Your interests will be protected." I pulled the top document closer. The font pretended to be friendly. The language did not. I read every line twice. No mention of independent counsel, no recital of consideration, no carve-out for the original down payment. The signature line waited like an open mouth. I set the pages down. "I won't sign anything today," I said, "and not without my own attorney." I slid the capped pen back across the island. Casey's patience showed its seam. "Today would be ideal, Ms. Hale. Rates are moving. We made time on a Sunday because we care about your comfort." Joran cleared his throat and read from his script. "Do you understand the documents before you? Are you signing of your own free will?" "I understand what you've put in front of me," I answered, "and I'll sign nothing until independent counsel reviews it." I pulled a sticky tab from my pocket notebook and placed it on the deed pending review. Jody inhaled like I had spoiled a surprise. "Lorena, this is us trying to help. We toured Meadow Ridge. Their garden is darling. You'll love the Bridge Club." Before I could answer, my phone vibrated on the counter. "Natalie Title Services," the screen read. I tapped speaker. "Good morning," I said. "Ms. Hale," a woman's voice asked. "I'm calling to confirm requested changes to the Hale-Rowntree property file. We received instructions to remove a co-owner prior to refinance. We just need your verbal okay. You have me on speaker," I said. "Please repeat who authorized the request." A short pause. "The request came via a signed letter from Mr. Gannon Rowntree's household attention, Casey Lowell. We also received an email yesterday evening from Jay Rowntree." "Thank you, Natalie," I said. "I'm not providing authorization today. Please send me a written summary of every proposed change, including the authorizing party and timestamp. Email is fine, I can do that," she said. "Would you like me to copy any other counsel?" "Not yet," I said. We disconnected. Casey smoothed the folio. Jody's smile tightened. "This is supposed to be a wedding gift," she said. "From me, removing you from the paperwork so you don't have to worry. We're taking responsibility. Gifts." I said, lifting my coffee, "Do not erase recorded interests, and responsibility does not begin with erasing a mother." Gannon finally looked at me. "Mom Jody handled the logistics," he said. "I thought this is just so we can get better terms." "Have you read the deed, son?" I asked. His eyes fell, not in detail. I held his gaze for 2 breaths. "Then there's no rush," I said. "You'll both want to know what you're asking." Casey tried again, voice softer. "We can annotate the file right now, your living expenses covered for a year at Meadow Ridge. We'll make sure you're secure." "I am secure," I said. "I have my home, my keys, my mind, and my records. If you want to propose changes, put them in writing. I'll respond after my counsel reviews Natalie's summary." Duran capped his stamp. "Sometimes folks need a day," he said. "Thank you for coming," I said, standing. "Help yourselves to a muffin for the road." They slid papers into the folio. Jody leaned in her perfume, a citrus blade. "We're only trying to make this easy," she whispered. "I prefer it correct," I said. The door clicked shut. I wiped a coffee ring from the quartz and set my phone on the island. A banner appeared, title confirmation of requested changes. I let it sit. I opened my camera roll and added a screenshot to the album I'd started the night before the seating card, the declined. Slipped the audio from the toast, now the email banner. Dates, times, locations. A life reduced to headers and proof, which is sometimes how you keep a life from being reduced. If they were ready with papers, I was ready with timestamps. By noon, the email would settle in my inbox, and the trust file my husband and I wrote years ago would wake like a good guard dog on cue. I didn't need to bark. I needed to feed it facts and let it work. I rinsed the mugs, dried them, and set them upside down. The island was clear again. So was I. At 8 sharp, I spread last night's artifacts across my bedroom desk the way a quilter lays out pieces before stitching. The title email sat open on my laptop, a tidy paragraph about authorization and requester. Time-stamped minutes after dessert. I printed it, circled the phrases that mattered, and slid the page into a fresh folder I labeled in block letters, Trust Active Defense. Beside it, I placed the photo of the place card by the busing door, the declined membership slip, and the audio file name from the toast, written on a yellow note. Paper didn't get offended. Paper just told the truth when asked the right questions. By 8:30, I called Marcia at the legal aid clinic. She answered on the second ring, voice brisk but kind, the sound of a person who measures twice before she cuts. I explained the wedding, the kitchen table documents, the quitclaim deed, with no independent counsel disclosure. She asked for scans. I emailed the photos and the title note while we were still on the phone. "Your living trust has teeth," she said after a quick skim. "No contest clause, conditional power of attorney requiring 2 physicians, and we can add a notice to title that any recording requests must route through my office." It landed in me like a chair offered to a tired back. She penciled me in for noon. I packed the red folder the way I used to pack Gannon's backpack for first-grade essentials on top backups beneath. Deed copy loan agreement title. Email my notes in chronological order. I took a quick photo of the folder's contents, then one of the folder itself, and emailed both to my cloud account. Red meant urgent in my system, but it didn't have to mean frantic. I breathed in for 4 counts and out for 6. The mountains held steady outside my window. I matched them. The clinic's conference room was small and quiet, a good place for facts. Marcia reviewed the trust pages, ran a finger along the conditional POA clause, and nodded. This protects you unless 2 independent physicians document incapacity. You're the current trustee and beneficiary. Nobody moves the fence without you. She drafted a short notice for title and escrow. All contact about the property should go through counsel. Attempts to alter the chain without my written consent would be disputed. She added a webhook and automatic alert so any recorder's office search on my parcel number would ping her inbox. I signed an authorization for her to speak on my behalf in property matters. She queued the emails but kept her finger off send. Let's pair this with a capacity letter. Clean record, clean message. We also built a 1-page contact boundary. It wasn't a wall, it was a railing. Financial topics through counsel. Personal contact, civil and documented. I signed it and felt the strange relief of choosing which doorbell I would answer. Driving up Cascade toward Dr. Chandra's office, the May light sat bright on the Pike's granite, and my mind matched its outline. I dictated questions into my phone at red lights, ask for Mosier screening, ask for letter language about managing property and finances, ask for the visit date and time in the letter header. It wasn't paranoia, it was housekeeping. The nurse took vitals, reviewed my medications, and smiled when I described my daily walk loop around Monument Valley Park. "What brings you in today?" she asked. "A family legal matter," I said. "I need formal documentation that I can make my own decisions." She nodded like she'd heard that sentence before and made a note. Dr. Chandra entered with a warmth that never spilled into pity. She explained the Mo-CA memory attention executive function and set a steady pace. I drew a clock named animals subtracted by 7s, repeated a list of words after a short delay. She didn't rush. She watched my judgment as much as my recall. When we finished, she rotated the paper toward me. "Your score is within normal range. More importantly, your reasoning is intact." She asked about the wedding, the deed, the notary at the kitchen island. I gave her the bones without the vinegar. "Would you draft a letter," I asked, "stating that I have no cognitive impairment affecting my ability to manage property finances or consent to or decline legal documents? Please include today's date and time and send it directly to my attorney and, if requested, the title company." Dr. Chandra typed as I spoke, then printed the visit summary for me to carry while her office prepared the formal letter. "You'll have the signed PDF by mid-afternoon," she said. We shook hands as peers. In the parking lot, I sat for a minute with the engine off and the window cracked. A robin hopped along the curb with a string in its beak, patient and precise. I texted myself the line I'd been living by: never argue with a microphone answer with a document. Then I photographed the visit summary and uploaded it to the Trust Active Defense folder. At 3:42 p.m., my phone chimed with the exact sound I'd assigned to important mail. The capacity letter arrived as a 1-page PDF on clinic letterhead, signed with the language exactly as we'd discussed. I forwarded it to Marcia with the subject line "Capacity attached" and saved a copy to my laptop in the cloud. The red folder gained weight without growing heavier. By 4:05, Marcia had fired the notice salvo to title escrow and the bank no changes without my direct consent. Conditional POA, counsel contact only. She CC'd me. Her sentences were short and polite, the kind of writing that makes people sit up straighter. I starred the thread and closed my laptop like a satisfied book. At home, the kettle sang. I poured mint tea, set the red folder on the desk corner where my late husband's photo used to sit, and watched steam rise in clean lines. I texted my son a single sentence: "I'm available tomorrow at 10 if you want to talk. No lectures, no pleas." Adults met on calendars. Dusk slid down the front of the mountains. I tidied the desk, set a morning reminder, checked title response, and carried my mug to the living room. My phone buzzed once more. The doorbell camera had picked up voices on my porch earlier in the day. I tapped the clip. Wind first, then two hushed figures at my doorstep. One voice careful, the other hurried. I couldn't make out the whole exchange, just a clear sentence, when the wind paused. 1 year in a facility is enough to refinance. I let the clip run to the end and saved it to the same folder without comment. If they came with papers, I now had paper that could speak back. I turned off the lamp, the room settling around me like a well-folded quilt, and let my mind rest on the simple honesty of timestamps. The morning began with a vibration on my phone. At first, I thought it was just another promotional email, but the screen flashed with a notification from my doorbell app, motion detected 1:06 a.m. My thumb tapped it open before my coffee even finished brewing. The grainy glow of the porch light filled the screen shadows swaying in the mountain wind. I felt the familiar tingle in my chest that always came before a truth surfaced. This wasn't just motion, it was intent caught when they thought no one was looking. I slid in my earbuds and hit play. At first, only the sound of wind brushing against the mic, then faint voices. One I knew immediately, Jody. Her tone carried that confident clip, the cadence she used when she was sure of her control. Another voice, softer, likely one of her bridesmaids, and then it came like a clean slice through the night. 1 year in a facility is enough to refinance. The words landed heavy, cold, calculating. They weren't drunk whispers. They were plans. I replayed it twice then, once more at a slower speed, making sure I heard every syllable. I closed my eyes. Anger threatened to climb, but I pressed it down, shaping it into steel. I exported the clip immediately. Years of teaching myself to document rather than debate had made these steps second nature. Save as MP4. Check the metadata, device ID, timestamp, exact file size. My app let me generate a checksum, so I saved that too. A thumb drive slid into the port, the file duplicated there. Cloud backup confirmed. 3 copies, 3 anchors against denial. It wasn't paranoia, it was hygiene. Evidence hygiene. Then, as if on cue, another sting, a fresh email in my inbox. The subject line read, "Per Dorothy's request deed streamlining." Dorothy. My name wasn't Dorothy, and I had never written those words. I could almost hear Jody's polished voice behind that phrasing. The irritation was sharp, but it clarified me. I opened a reply, all fingers steady. I typed, "I did not request any deed change. Please provide the originator of that language and a complete log of calls or authorizations attached to this file." Then I attached proof. A still frame from the doorbell clip, no faces, just the porch timestamp. A screenshot of the file's metadata. And most importantly, Dr. Chandra's capacity letter from yesterday, dated, signed, indisputable. I attached Marcia's trust notice as well, the one explicitly stating all financial matters required my direct consent. I pressed send. The system auto-acknowledged receipt. A few minutes later, another email, Natalie from title. "Calling you in 15 minutes. That was all." I set my phone on the table, turned on the voice memo app, and placed it on speaker. When the call came, I greeted her warmly. For accuracy, I'd like to record our conversation. "Do I have your consent?" A pause, then, "Yes, ma'am, you do." Her tone was professional, crisp. I laid it out, plainly attempted, quitclaim deed yesterday, altered subject line today, and last night's porch audio with that damning phrase. 1 year in a facility is enough to refinance. I said it slowly, letting the weight land. Then I asked the only question that mattered. Can we place this file on hold until these irregularities are resolved? There was a silence filled only by the faint clack of her keyboard. Then her voice firm. "We're placing the escrow file on hold pending written confirmation from all parties. No changes or processing. You will receive confirmation in writing." Relief didn't come with a smile. It came with the steadiness of knowing a door had just been locked from my side. Within minutes, the email arrived. Bold header, escrow hold. Active. File number listed, bullet points clear. I starred it, then archived it to my Trust Active Defense folder. With the file frozen, I turned back to the clip. I wrote a one-page memo, context, device, timestamp, exact quote in quotation marks, attached the MP4 checksum and metadata note. It wasn't about theater, it was about admissibility. If I ever needed to hand it to Adult Protective Services or the police, it would stand untouched. My phone buzzed again, this time Jody's text. "We need to finalize today." Just that. Pressing as always. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded it straight into the email thread with Natalie. Subject line intact. Consolidated traceable. My silence became part of the paper trail. By late morning, another seed sprouted, a voicemail from my bank. "Please schedule a face-to-face clarification on deed and refi." My chest tightened, but only for a second. I returned the call, set the appointment for tomorrow morning. If they wanted to cross into my financial house, they would have to meet me on my terms. Before noon, I typed myself a final note. No speeches, just systems. That was my mantra now. Not to shout in a ballroom or argue in a kitchen. To document, to timestamp, to let paper speak where voices failed. And then Natalie's last email dropped the one that settled the morning like a stone in calm water. Bold letters at the top, escrow hold active. Status no actions allowed without Lorena's direct consent. I read it once, then again. They wanted speed. I preferred locks. The branch conference room smelled faintly of toner and lemon polish. Frosted glass blurred the hallway traffic, and a wall clock ticked just above the credenza. I arrived early enough to steady my breath, red folder tucked beneath my arm. Before stepping in, I had submitted an online report to Adult Protective Services and received a case number by email, just 6 digits but weighty enough to carry into this room. Mr. Denby, the branch manager, stood as I entered. His handshake was professional, firm, without theater. Gannon slipped in. 2 minutes later, hair uncombed, eyes rimmed with the fatigue of someone who hadn't slept well. He didn't meet my gaze immediately. He busied himself with pulling out a chair, straightening the cuff of his shirt. I let the silence fill the space before the banker broke it. On the polished table, Mr. Denby laid 2 documents side by side. One bore fresh ink and wide margins, a quitclaim deed. The other was the original loan agreement I had signed with Gannon 2 years earlier, the one I had carried here in my red folder. I placed my copy beside his and opened it to the signature page. The air felt still, as if even the wall clock was waiting. Denby explained his protocol carefully. Any request to alter title when an elder co-owner was involved required a deeper review. He used words like undue influence and safeguard his tone, neutral, procedural. I nodded, slid my ID across the table, and referenced the capacity letter Dr. Chandra had signed yesterday. My paperwork lay ready. When it was my turn, I kept my words measured. I stated clearly that I would not sign away my interest in the property. I summarized without embellishment the humiliations of the wedding night, the declined membership card, and the suspicious email. Then I noted the escrow hold already active with the title company. I laid down a photocopy of the declined slip, its timestamp visible. Gannon finally lifted the loan agreement. His lips moved as he read the repayment clause aloud, tracing the 24-month schedule, the modest interest line, the signatures, his and mine, clear at the bottom. His voice faltered only once. I did not rush him. Silence can be sharper than questions. Denby tapped each document with the cap of his pen. "Mr. Henderson, which paper reflects your intent?" His phrasing was simple yet final. The quitclaim deed lay bright, uncreased. The loan agreement showed the smudge of years. Gannon's hand hovered above the quitclaim, then withdrew. He pressed his palm flat against the loan. His voice was a whisper. The loan. The banker nodded, wrote a short memo in careful script. Client affirms a loan agreement controls. No deed change authorized. He printed 2 copies. We initialed. One went into the branch file. The other I slid into my red folder. The quiet sound of paper sliding into place felt heavier than any gavel. I provided the APS case number next. Denby entered it into the account notes, attaching a flag for staff awareness. He explained that any future attempt at title change would trigger a mandatory in-person confirmation. From me, no exceptions. The policy was protective, not dramatic, and it reassured me more than any apology could. We reviewed communication boundaries next. I requested that all financial inquiries be made by email with me copied, and my attorney Marcia included. Denby adjusted the system settings to block phone authorizations from third parties. I signed the updated contact preferences. It was procedural, not personal, and it gave me air to breathe. In the hallway, Gannon lingered a step behind me. His voice was low, as if he feared the walls might echo. "I should have read it," he said. His eyes glistened, but he did not speak her name. I touched his sleeve lightly once. "Reading is what saves families," I answered. It was all I could offer without unraveling the thin thread of composure we both clung to. In the car, I photographed the memo Denby had drafted, then uploaded it to the Trust Active Defense folder on my phone. I texted him a brief thank you, ensuring the day left its own digital trail. Small acts accumulate. Paper and pixels outlast whispers. At 10:28 a.m., my phone buzzed. The calendar reminder flashed across the screen. APS interview, 3:00 p.m. Case the hours. Nauer for hours. My pulse steadied. The bank had heard me. Now the state would too. I wiped the kitchen table until the wood caught the late afternoon light. This table had hosted birthday cakes, school projects, and quiet evenings with coffee. Today it carried something heavier, my defense. I arranged a neat stack: deed copy, loan agreement, capacity letter, trust notice, porch cam transcript. Each page squared, each pen aligned. I had bought this table years ago, and it would serve me again now. The front door clicked open. Jody walked in, first hair pinned in a glossy sweep, followed by Casey in his suit and Joran carrying his stamp kit. The greetings were shallow, professional. Casey set his folio on the table. Joran spread out his notary tools with a deliberate clink. I offered water, not coffee. Hospitality, but no comfort. Casey leaned forward, voice smooth. "Just formalities, Mrs. Henderson. This quitclaim simply streamlines what you've already agreed to." Jody chimed in, smiling too brightly. "You've been so supportive, we just want this in place quickly." She nudged the pen closer. I folded my hands and let the silence answer. I cleared my throat softly. "For accuracy, I'll record this meeting," I said. Casey and Joran both nodded. I pressed the button, the small red light glowing steady. "And I'll keep copies of anything presented here." From beneath the table, I slid out a manila folder labeled Exhibits. My voice stayed calm, measured. Then I spread my evidence one sheet at a time. The recorded deed with both our names. The loan agreement signed and dated. Dr. Chandra's capacity letter printed yesterday. The living trust notice complete with no contest clause. Finally, the transcript from my porch camera. 1 year in a facility is enough to refinance. Each document tabbed, each heading, read aloud into the recorder. The air thinned as pages covered the wood. Joran leaned in, brow tightening as he skimmed the capacity letter. He closed his stamp kit with a snap. "I cannot notarize any conveyance under active dispute," he said, voice clipped but polite. He packed his things, looked to Casey. "Proceed without me if you wish, but I will withdraw." The sound of his zipper sealing the kit felt louder than any argument. A chime sounded from my phone. Natalie from Title had sent a new email, escrow hold, active. I read the line into the recorder, word by word. Jody's jaw clenched, her smile breaking. My phone buzzed again. I answered on speaker. Mr. Denby's voice filled the kitchen. "Per your request, we've added an undue influence review flag. No deed or loan actions will process without your in-person confirmation. I asked for written confirmation. Within moments, his email arrived. "Confirmation received," I said into the recorder. Casey cleared his throat, shuffling papers. "Perhaps we should table this for a week," he suggested. Jody broke in sharper now. "We don't have a week, not with timelines and the baby." I folded my hands again. No signatures today. All future communications through counsel. My tone was identical each time, calm, firm, rehearsed. I walked them to the door. Duran gave me a brief, respectful nod. Casey kept his eyes on the floor. Jody lingered at the threshold, her voice a whisper, edged with steel. "You're making this harder than it has to be." I met her gaze steady. Good boundaries usually do. Back at the table, I photographed the layout, uploaded the full audio, and filed the bank email alongside the title hold notice. Everything backed up to cloud and thumb drive. I added a short summary note with timestamps. Kitchen meeting concluded no signatures. As dusk deepened, a new email banner slid across my screen. "I'm Jody's mother. We should talk." The signature line read, "Lacey Kramer." A preview of the attached memo carried a watermark from Jody's old employer. Not every warning comes with a threat. Some arrive with a signature. I reread the subject line twice before answering, "We should talk." The sender was Lacey Kramer, Jody's mother. I chose daylight and public ground, a corner table at a cafe in old Colorado City, all windows and soft clatter. Before leaving, I tucked my red folder into my bag, checked my phone recorder, and slipped a small notebook beside it. Lacey arrived on time, a tall woman with tired eyes and a coat, too warm for the season. She folded her hands before speaking. "I'm not here as a defender," she said. "I'm here as a mother. I asked for permission to record." She agreed, her nod deliberate as though she wanted her words preserved. From her bag, she pulled a manila envelope marked with a faded HR watermark. Inside were photocopied memos, an exit notice from an assisted living employer, notes from supervisors about boundary concerns with residents, and 2 summaries of short relationships with older men that ended with financial irregularities. My eyes skimmed dates and names, each line heavier than the last. She didn't let me read in silence for long. "These weren't accidents," she said. "This is Jody's pattern. She moves close offers help, then reframes every gift as an obligation. She corners people during illness or crisis to get signatures." I watched it happen more than once. Her hands shook slightly as she admitted her silence had enabled it. I asked careful questions, supervisors' names, case numbers, exact dates. She answered, each eyes lowered but steady. When I asked why, now her voice thinned. "Because a baby doesn't erase accountability. I won't bankroll fraud. And I won't pretend I didn't see what happened at the wedding. I should have stopped it." She pressed her palm flat on the table, then pulled it back as if the wood had burned her. I kept my tone measured. "If this is to stand, I'll need more than stories." She agreed. I asked for scanned PDFs with embedded timestamps, original contacts where possible, and a signed statement of origin. Right there on cafe paper, I drafted 2 sentences of provenance. We both signed, and I photographed it. We stood at the same time. No embrace, only a small nod passed between us mothers, aligned by truth more than affection. I promised to treat her documents as evidence, not gossip. She left with her coat pulled tight, and I returned home with the envelope pressed to my side. By early afternoon, my inbox carried another weight, a reply from Avery, the country club manager. His email confirmed that during wedding week, someone had called on my behalf to request freezing and transferring my member privileges. The request was not authorized by me. He attached a call log with date and staff initials. I linked his email directly to the photo of my declined club card from the wedding night. I added both to the Trust Active Defense folder, annotating pattern of unauthorized representations. I called Marcia, my attorney. We agreed on 3 routes: send Lacey's dossier to APS with my case number in the subject forward, Avery's letter to title and escrow, and copy the bank to append the club incident to my account notes. She reminded me, facts not feelings. I drafted clean, plain emails. To APS, I attached the HR notes with a cover line, supporting documentation per case. To title, I forwarded Avery's letter, requesting it be linked to the hold file. To Mr. Denby, I included the same letter and asked for it to be appended to my profile. Each attachment bore time-stamped headers, each subject line clear. At 2:17 p.m., a ping lit my screen. APS replied. Investigator Rodriguez confirmed an on-site interview for this evening, moved up citing corroborating documents received. Some truths travel faster than threats. Rodriguez arrived at dusk, the porch light catching the glint of his badge before he stepped inside. I led him straight to the kitchen table, the one constant surface in my house that had seen every bill, every birthday cake, and every setback I'd ever carried. Tonight it was laid with a single neat stack, my red folder, a pitcher of water, and 2 glasses. No clutter, no distractions, just paper and time. He introduced himself calmly, setting down his recorder and notebook. "I'll be recording if that's all right," he said. "Yes," I replied, "and I'll ask for the report number and a copy when available." "APS case 1124725. He answered, sliding a small card across. I left my phone face down on the table, making sure there would be no interruptions. He asked me to walk him through events in my own words. I chose 4 anchors clear as stones placed in a line, the wedding toast that branded me as dependent the morning quitclaim push, with a notary at my kitchen island, the doorbell audio where Jody's voice named a year in a facility as leverage, and the title office confirmation of the escrow hold. I gave him dates, times, and who stood where without adjectives. He nodded, jotting each detail. Then came the evidence. One by one, I slid documents across the capacity letter signed by Dr. Chandra, my living trust notice, with a no contest clause, the memo from Pikes Peak Credit Union documenting Gannon's choice of loan over quitclaim, the title hold email with its bold header, and the transcript of the porch audio. Rodriguez photographed each page, checked my phone for originals, and noted that I kept both digital and printed copies. I played only 13 seconds of the clip The Night Wind, then Jody's voice, 1 year in a facility is enough to refinance. He wrote down the timestamp as I handed him the checksum note to prove authenticity. Next, I summarized my meeting with Lassie Jody's mother. I slid over the signed statement of origin photocopied HR memos and her list of supervisors who had handled complaints. Rodriguez's eyes tightened as he logged each name, murmuring, "Patterns are powerful." From there, I forwarded him the club manager's email confirming an unauthorized attempt to transfer my membership. He flagged it as impersonation evidence and asked me to forward the call log directly to the APS secure inbox. At that point, I placed a call to Marcia on speaker. She confirmed the conditional power of attorney and asked that APS copy her on any referrals. Rodriguez agreed, reading back an action list so both counsel and client understood. Then he dictated the formal statement. I spoke the facts again, each word captured by his recorder. I signed electronically and received a printed acknowledgement. He promised a welfare and financial safety check within 48 hours. Before closing his notebook, he explained what came next. My file, he said, had crossed the threshold from protective services into criminal inquiry. The evidence pattern financial exploitation indicators, capacity documentation, corroboration meets criteria for referral, he told me. The Elder Abuse Detective Unit will be notified tonight. He slid me a card with a desk number and promised the clip and dossier would transfer before midnight. We talked safety, not fear. I confirmed the alerts I had already set Bank Title Counsel. He added practical steps, change the door. PIN update, who could access documents, insist on no unannounced meetings. By the time he packed his bag, the house felt larger. He thanked me for the clarity of my file, left his email on the card, and walked out into the evening. I wasn't done yet. At the desk, I scanned the signed acknowledgement and filed it into the Trust Active Defense folder. I logged the time and typed Rodriguez's action list. Then I sent Gannon a neutral text, met with APS. If you want facts, I'll share the report number. When I set my phone down again, it buzzed with a new subject line, from debt, H. Vega, intake on financial exploitation. Beneath it, a calendar link for tomorrow's morning call. When systems work, you don't raise your voice, you raise your documents. I signed the visitor log at the police department, my name written in neat block letters I've used on every bank slip and every school permission slip since my son was a boy. The walls were plain beige, no decoration, just a clock and a framed mission statement. Detective Vega greeted me with a firm nod. Gannon was already seated at the table, his shoulders, rounded eyes, tired. A recorder sat in the center of the table, its red light waiting. Detective Vega laid out the ground rules in a clear voice. This is a criminal inquiry into suspected elder financial exploitation, document fraud, and impersonation. We're recording with your consent. APS case number already links to this file. Yes, I said. You have my consent. I sat straight, folded my hands. My red folder rested at my side. Vega asked for a short recap, and I delivered it like a grocery list. The wedding toast that painted me as dependent, the quitclaim push at the kitchen island, the midnight porch recording, where Jody's voice said 1 year in a facility was enough to refinance the title escrow hold the bank memo. I slid across a one-page index of exhibits already on record. My voice didn't rise, didn't tremble. He shifted a stack of papers and pulled up printed email headers. We need to review the message labeled, per Dorothy's request, deed streamlining. These lines return path. Message ID client IP tell us where it came from. I leaned in steady. I didn't write that subject line. Vega asked if we could loop in Natalie from title. With my nod, he placed the call on speaker. Her voice came crisp. Yes, detective. Our system shows the subject was altered outside our domain. He read the header slowly. Originating IP traces to a mobile carrier account. Device registered to J. Kramer timestamped the same night as the porch clip. I noted the time on my pad. Across the table, Gannon let out a long exhale, as though he'd been holding his breath since May 10th. We moved to the credit union into Mr. Denby's office. He was ready. The banker pulled up an audit log, 2 failed attempts to change my profile and authorization settings. The timestamps matched the same IP window. Vega photographed the screen, slipped a chain of custody note into the file. Then he turned to my son. Mr. Henderson, you can make a voluntary statement. Anything you say will be part of this record. Gannon's eyes flicked to me. I didn't plead, didn't scold. Tell the truth, son. His voice broke, but his words were clear. Jody drafted that line. She said it would make title move faster. She told me not to loop Mom in, and yes, I heard her say the refinance would work if Mom spent a year in a facility. The detective typed quickly, then slid a paper across. A witness affidavit. Gannon read signed. Preservation letters followed to title for call recordings to the bank for audit trails to the carrier for device logs. I signed my consent for my accounts to be used as evidence. Do you want a protective order now? Vega asked me. Not yet, I answered. Civil boundaries and documentation hold. If threats rise, I'll file. He respected that, noting it for the file. Back in Denby's office, he emailed us the audit snapshot with his signature. Natalie sent the header packet. Vega assigned the case number and outlined next steps, likely a device warrant. In the hallway, Gannon walked beside me, silent until the elevator doors closed. I'll cooperate, he said. His eyes glistened. Cooperation is what grown men do when they've been used, I replied. There was no embrace, only a nod. The repayment plan still stands. Integrity first. In my car, I opened my journal and wrote one line, "Love protects," with documents when love alone isn't believed. I sent Marcia a summary voice note. Her reply came quick, excellent chain. A ping vibrated through my phone. From Detective Vega drafting device warrant affidavit. Expect outreach to J. Kramer's counsel by Monday. I closed my eyes. They wanted my signature. Now the law wanted their metadata. I arrived at Lassie Kramer's townhouse just as the afternoon wind stirred the chimes on her porch. She opened the door quietly, gestured to my shoes, and said nursery upstairs. I slipped them off the lavender scent already rising from the staircase. It wasn't my home, but I entered with the same composure I'd practiced for months. Records, not arguments, would keep me steady. The nursery was painted pale yellow, the light soft against the white crib tucked into the corner. Above it, a mobile of paper cranes drifted with the air from a vent. Lacey stood at the window, her hands clasped. I set this up when I thought I'd be the safety net, she said. I only nodded, letting the ache stay inside. She asked me to sit on the small love seat against the wall. I called today because I'm choosing facts over family myths, she began. She had seen the detective's email to counsel and knew silence would make her complicit. She admitted no excuses would sound right. I respected that no theater, just truth. From a canvas tote, she pulled a tablet and turned it so I could read the screen. The HR banner across the top was red. It flagged an attempted change in dependent and beneficiary entries from Jody's login, denied, logged as potential misrepresentation. Lacey tapped to forward the email directly to me and to Marcia. "I won't hold this," she said. Then she reached for a diaper caddy on the dresser. She lifted wipes and lotions until she revealed a spiral notebook. On the cover in Jody's handwriting were the words, "Bus stop." Inside bulleted steps, loan damit your gift 1-year facility quitclaim after notary benefits lock. The handwriting was familiar from invitations I'd saved. I photographed each page with my phone, time-stamped them, and placed the notebook back exactly where it had been. Lacey's voice dropped. "I minimized too much for the baby. I can't anymore." She handed me a short written declaration she had prepared, stating the notebook was Jody's discovered weeks ago in this room. I signed as a witness, photographed it, and returned the copy to her. Next, she opened a folder containing a draft petition for a protective order civil language for financial harassment and impersonation, exhibits already labeled. She explained a friend had helped her prepare it. I snapped photos and emailed them to Marcia with the subject line review and hold. Not filed yet, but waiting. The cranes above us shifted again, casting shadows across the notebook pages on my lap. Lacey said I wanted this room to mean protection. I answered protection is a verb. Before leaving, I made clear lines. I won't enter Jody's home. I won't meet her without counsel. No surprise confrontations. Lacey agreed. From now on, documents, not emotions, would travel between us. Back at my desk, I scanned the HR alert and notebook photos into the Trust Active Defense folder. I forwarded them to Detective Vega APS Investigator Rodriguez and Marcia subject line Addenda Benefits Attempt. Bus stop notes. I tagged them carefully, benefits, impersonation eviction plan. Marcia called within the hour. She advised we could file the protective order petition immediately or wait for the device warrant step. Pre-fill today file upon next contact attempt, she suggested. I agreed. I wanted readiness, not escalation. While I worked, my phone buzzed with a text from Gannon Jody wants to meet to fix messaging. I archived it without reply, forwarded it to Marcia and Vega, and logged it under no unscheduled contact. Silence was a record too. Evening shadows lengthened across my apartment as a new email pinged. Vega's subject line read, "Notebook plus HR alert strengthen intent. Device warrant affidavit finalized. Judge review tomorrow 8:00 a.m. They had written a plan to move me out. Now the law had written a plan to move the truth in. The El Paso County Courthouse smelled faintly of polish and paper, the kind of place that insisted on order. I stepped through security red folder tucked beneath my arm and found Marcia already inside. She tapped her pen twice on the bench beside her, our quiet signal that things were lining up. Across the aisle, the district attorney conferred with defense counsel. The room hummed with whispers, but I kept my eyes on the seal above the judge's chair. When our case was called, the judge read the caption with no drama. The DA summarized the charges: attempted financial exploitation impersonation and document tampering. The defense voice clipped indicated they were prepared to change plea contingent on restitution. Clean docket energy, no grandstanding, just names, dates, and the law. The first exhibit entered was the notary's sworn affidavit. Mr. Patterson admitted he had been retained by Jody, misled about my capacity, and pressured to expedite. He acknowledged his failure to verify consent, and he agreed to a professional complaint review. The judge accepted it, the gavel noting it into record. Cold clarity gave me validation. Detective Vega followed with a precise summary email headers, proving the altered subject line originated from Jody's device bank audit logs, showing failed authorization attempts and title metadata, confirming timestamps that match the porch audio. Minimal words, maximum effect. The court recognized it as a pattern, not an accident. Then came the plea. The defense accepted terms 18 months probation restitution in full no-contact order, except through counsel, mandatory financial management classes, and community service at an elder center roles with no access to money. Jody's voice was small but audible. "Yes, Your Honor." Relief came in a measured form like air released from a valve. Restitution was ordered $15,000 plus interest and costs. The court added a civil note I retained the right to pursue damages if she breached. I didn't look at her. I looked at the clerk's stamp striking the order. Numbers had become promises. Outside the courtroom, Marcia read from her phone. Title had filed a formal fraud alert lender freeze in place. Any refinance now required my direct, in-person notarized consent. I forwarded the notice to APS and filed it in the Trust Closed Loop folder. Clean victory paper bound. In the hallway, Gannon stepped into a side alcove. "No excuses," he said. "I hurt you." He handed Marcia a signed repayment addendum, mirroring the court schedule for his separate debt to me. I answered, "Integrity is installments paid on time." His eyes dropped, but his hand didn't shake as he passed the page. He updated me quietly that the old house would list next week proceeds set to clear joint obligations. He planned to rent closer to me when the baby arrived. A boundary was fixed. I would not return to that house. Back at my desk, I worked through a string of emails APS case sustained and closed with services. Title confirming fraud alert active, bank noting final fraud flags posted. I saved each PDF building a final index I titled, "What Saved Me a Map for Aging Safely." I printed one copy for the drawer my son could access someday. At dusk, I stepped onto my balcony. A text arrived from Lassie with a nursery photo, the cranes above the crib, now still window open to evening air. She shared the baby's chosen name, then asked if I wanted to be called when labor started. I typed back, "Yes. I will love her without rewriting the truth." Later that night, Gannon came by briefly. No hug, just presence. We agreed on bi-weekly dinners, a shared calendar, and one hard rule: no conversations about Jody outside counsel. He looked at me, eyes steady. "Thank you for not giving up on me." I told him I didn't. I gave up on being handled. When he left, I filed the last document, locked the drawer, and set a paper crane mobile by my own window. They wanted my signature. I gave them my standards, and at this age, that is the estate no one can steal. Looking back on everything I've learned, that documents, boundaries, and quiet persistence can protect what love alone sometimes cannot. In America today, many families face pressures, financial, emotional, even manipulative, and it's easy to feel silenced or erased. But age is not weakness. Experience, vigilance, and the courage to say no with evidence can secure both dignity and safety. My story is not just about saving an estate. It's about proving that respect must be earned, not stolen. Now, I'd like to ask you, have you ever faced a moment where silence felt safer than speaking up? What did you choose, and what would you do differently today? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story touched you, type 1 or tell me where you're watching from. And if you want more stories like this, true heartfelt lessons from life, make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the next chapter.